in your workplace, you will see less incidents, less accidents, less people getting hurt. That's going to be your defining fundamental factor in measurement. The way the triple Ps are broken down is we've taken the health and safety system to layman's terms, so we don't talk about long-fangled words or long acronyms that you think, what does this mean? We're bringing everything back to the layman.
Welcome back to My Safety Hub. This is part 3 of our episode where we cover the triple Ps, policies, procedures and practices developed by Safety Wallet for their subscribers. The information we cover here is quite extensive, so if you have any questions that you would like to ask, please leave a comment below. My guest today is Greg Morse, the administrator for Ash Online at BackReSafe and Safety Wallet. Greg, we've discussed quite a few questions with regards to the implementation of the triple Ps in a business. How would you measure the success of the triple Ps once they've been implemented in the business?
Okay, nice question. There's a number of ways that we can actually measure it. The most fundamental of all of it is in your workplace, you will see less incidents, less accidents, less people getting hurt. That's going to be your defining fundamental factor in measurement. With respect to the documents themselves, the objectives are a good tool for measuring. They've been deliberately put into the documents as a form of measurement. You're able to encompass the objectives in the policy as your driving document. Within the procedure, you're able to look at the objectives and be able to say, yes, we've got these things in place. If we've got those things in place, our policy is working. Therefore, it's a success. Within your practices, you're unpacking procedure part in more detail, and it's giving context to why those objectives are important and why they become successful.
What about compliance? Having some inclination or idea with regards to where my business is standing in terms of complying to the OSH Act and its regulations, the municipal bylaws, South African national standards, tobacco legislation, compensation for injuries on duty legislation. How would I know if my compliance is actually improving?
That's the beauty of the triple Ps. You don't have to know, because by looking at your objectives, you will be becoming compliant. The reason for this, the objectives themselves are looking back at the legislation. Those objectives come out of legislation. They interpret the legislation. They are what legislation needs you to do. So when they just put in a different form, rather than using lawyer terms and horrible, nasty language, we reinterpret them in a way that they are still aligned to that. But they talk to you, they talk to the layman. And that's something that we haven't covered yet with our discussion, is the fact that the triple Ps, we've spoken about the aspects, but they break down into layman's terms. So you don't have to be having qualifications or
Albert Einstein to interpret them.
Correct. They're broken down in the layman's terms. In the language we use, we try and keep it to layman's terms so that a layman can understand that. The way the triple Ps are broken down is we've taken the health and safety system to layman's terms, so we don't talk about long-fangled words or long acronyms that you think, what does this mean? We're bringing everything back to the layman. Within the document, we actually have sections on the abbreviations we use within the document. We also have definitions of how we are using certain terms for the document, so it applies to the document, so the understanding is there. That's very important because it brings everything back out to layman understanding that process. Through layman understanding that process, habits can change, behaviors can change, and we can change that mindset to a health and safety culture.
So they can also be used for training if they are so easily interpreted.
Absolutely.
Essentially, the triple Ps can then be used to train those individuals who are aspiring to become safety officers as well.
Absolutely. The practices themselves unpack so much detail with each aspect that there's no reason why you can't use that as a learning tool. And for For a layman that wants to get a better understanding of why it's applying to them, or it's a health and safety officer that wants to learn more, they are tremendously powerful tools for learning from. They have a lot of knowledge, they have a lot of experience behind them. You, as a user of these, gained from the immense number of years of experience and knowledge that's come from that. So they're huge benefits. And yes, very, very useful training tools. You can apply them into basic tool tips. You can apply them to simple refresher.
So we've kind of let a rabbit out of the hat now with regards to the training aspects of it.
Absolutely.
So watch this space.
Absolutely.
But the next question I have then takes us back to legislation. How are the policies kept up to date with changing legislation? So if I have a policy with regards to lifting equipment, let's say forklifts, and the regulations with regards to driven machinery changes, what happens to my policy in Oshawa?
Okay, what we do is we refer to a reputable service provider of health and safety legislation in South Africa, where we get updates on a weekly basis of any changes or proposed changes that are happening in legislation. When those changes actually happen, we then update in the back end of our processes that legislation so that we are up to date with that process. That then comes through into the documents themselves, where we will make revisions to the documents themselves, and we can then pass on that information to users to say, this has actually been updated now. You guys need to be aware of this. The great beauty of that is we do all that in the background. There's a lot of work that goes on just making sure all of that is up to date and that you are current. You as a user just carry on.
Would I have to sign my policy again? Because I mean, if legislation changes and the reference in the policy has now been updated, I would think that whatever change has been made in the policy still has to be approved. I'd need to carry knowledge of that change.
Correct.
And I've signed the previous version.
Correct.
So would I have to re-sign the new version?
There may be cases where that actually does happen because obviously legislation changes. We do not have control of how it changes. But yes, there are certain cases where legislation does change more significantly. Often it's for the benefit, and in the recent changes, that legislation has been made simpler, so it's easier to understand. So generally it's for a positive enhancement of your system. So yeah, you will have cases where that happens, but that's the nature of the beast. Health and safety is going to change all the time. What is important is we catch those changes, we update those changes, and we let you know of the changes so that you can then update in your process.
That's valuable information. Thank you. It's good to know that there's always somebody behind Oshawa making sure that the system stays up to date and that the triple P stay up to date as well. I think that creates a bit of peace of mind for the subscribers so that they won't have to worry about updating their policies themselves. But essentially that work gets done for them. And they can keep doing what they want to do to put food on the table, essentially.
Yes, we want the policies to work for the user. We want to take away the hard work of that and make it as easy as possible. We want the user to concentrate on getting their health and safety into place, particularly if they don't have anything. These take away that daunting prospect of this huge elephant that we spoke about right at the beginning. They are there to help the user, to guide the user, to provide support for the user. And together, between the triple Ps that you use, between being able to contact MicroSafe or Safety Wallet, between the shop that's available, all of these functions or mechanisms are there as a support for you, the user, so that you can put health and safety in place. You can feel that this isn't such a big task after all, that it can be done, it is doable for your business and your local business. That's what we're about. So the more that we can take away the work for you, the better, because then you can focus on getting it done.
It's really insightful. And And like I've mentioned in the interview with both Leon and John, I think the approach towards a grudge purchase, which is health and safety for many people, is a fresh one. And I think the triple Ps will add a huge amount of that to any business who subscribes to Safety Wallet and is committed to the process as well. Thank you for joining us for part 3 of this episode. Part 4 will follow, where we will be discussing OSH Online in a little bit more in-depth conversation with Greg. Subscribe to the channel if you would like to receive updates on any other videos that we'll be posting.